When life gives you a ton of supreme quality nuts, what do? That's right, you make your very own self-branded caramel nut bars. Here they are, fresh out of the studio workshop, and in this video I'm gonna guide you through the process of making your very own caramel nut brittle, a chewy Rice Krispie treat style snack, and of course how you can not only mass produce these super tasty snack bars at home, but even package them in a custom-made fancy wrapper with your very own branding, which just so happens to be the perfect gift for the holiday season or any other time of the year. Most importantly though, I have not actually tasted this final product yet. So we're gonna do that together at the end of this video, and if it's actually as good as I'm hoping, then I'm gonna do another giveaway so you can actually win one of these pretty little nut bars. But let me tell you how we got here. It all started when the sponsor of this video reached out to me, and that is Delicious. Delicious is a platform that shares the stories behind a wide variety of high-quality American-grown products people over here in Europe and the world should know more about, which happen to include some of the tastiest nuts in the world, which they kindly hooked me up with so I can create an unforgettable product and possibly share it with you guys. Now all I gotta do is figure out how, so let's get started. The first step in this process was deciding on the core concept of the bar itself. I find that a lot of the store-bought nut bars can be quite one-dimensional, like just peanuts, really? I want to create something that celebrates variety, a real mélange of nuts. But then I thought, why stop at just nuts? I mean, texture is everything when it comes to a good snack. And that's when the idea of layering came in. I wanted to combine the crunch of caramelized nuts with something softer, chewier, and nostalgic. Cue the Rice Krispie treats inspiration. Pairing that with caramelized crispy nuts on top kind of feels like a winning combo. With the concept locked in, the next step was the fun part, which is selecting the nuts for our bar. With my only requirement being US grown nuts, I actually still had a ton of choices. You can always verify their country of origin by checking the packaging. The ones I decided not to use were walnuts and hazelnuts, which I both really like, but their flavor tends to be really dominant, especially hazelnuts, so those will just be snacks for another day. Now for the brittle base we're about to make, first grab a glass dish and grease that well with butter. Let's set that aside for now while I introduce you to the nuts I do want to go for. First, almonds. California is the world's almond capital, producing over 80% of the global supply. The state's perfect climate and agricultural standards make these almonds supremely tasty, and they are some of the most versatile nuts, fueling everything from snacks to innovative products like almond milk and flour. Then we got pecans. They're the true American nut because they're actually the only tree nut native to the continent. The US still produce about 80% of the world's supply. They're smooth and buttery, and for me personally, they're like walnuts hotter siblings. So no wonder they're the key ingredient in iconic American dishes like pecan pie. But let's not fully abandon the good old peanut. Though technically legumes, peanuts are an iconic American staple and one of the country's top crops. I don't have to tell you how versatile they are, from peanut butter to southern dishes like boiled peanuts. Finally, we got pistachios for some pizzazz. While not originally from the US, American pistachios have an edge up on some others. They're famous for their vibrant green color, large size, high quality, and rich taste. Pistachios deliver great nutrients, and US producers are known for sustainable farming practices, so that is a plus as well. Now, with our nut selection locked in, it's time to turn them into a delicious brittle layer. First up, prepping the nuts. To start, we're going to give them a quick blitz in a food processor. The goal here isn't to pulverize them into dust. We want coarse, bite-sized chunks. A few quick pulses should do the trick. But as you'll notice, there's often a bit of fine nut dust left behind after chopping. That's where a sieve comes in handy. Simply toss the nuts in the sieve, give it a good shake, and watch the dust fall away, leaving you with a clean, chunky bowl of nutty goodness. So clean, so ready for caramel. Now onto the caramelization process. The key to perfect nut brittle is in the sugar. Here's what you'll need. Regular caster sugar will be the main ingredient of our caramel. Water helps dissolve the sugar evenly, and finally, corn syrup or glucose syrup. This is actually non-negotiable. It's what prevents the sugar from crystallizing later on and ensures we get that beautiful glossy and glassy brittle texture. Add your ingredients to a saucepan over medium-low heat, and at this stage, patience is your best friend. Don't stir it, no matter how tempted you might be. Let the sugar dissolve and start to simmer on its own. This is a critical step for achieving a smooth caramel. Next, You'll need a thermometer because accuracy is actually everything here. Our target temperature is between 140 and 145 Celsius. Any lower and you'll end up with a melty soft caramel, any higher and it might become too bitter or too hard. When the sugar mixture hits the sweet spot, it's go time. Add your prepared nuts directly into the bubbling sugar. Stir quickly and carefully because this is where things get sticky, literally. The caramel will start thickening almost immediately as the temperature drops, so that is your cue to move fast. Transfer the caramel nut mixture into your pre-greased dish. Remember, it's hot, so handle with care. Use a rubber spatula or a heat-resistant glove over a sheet of baking paper to spread the mixture evenly across the dish. Once cool enough to handle, you can do some fine-tuning with your fingers. As the brittle starts cooling, you'll notice it hardening into a glossy, crunchy layer. Give it time to cool completely, only then will it get the firm, satisfying crunch we're after. Up next, we'll work on the chewy Rice Crispy layer to complete our bar. Except here's the twist, we're not actually using rice. I decided to go a little fancier and use puffed quinoa instead. It adds a fun, slightly nutty flavor that complements the rest of the bar perfectly. For this layer, we only need one more ingredient, good old American-style marshmallows. These fluffy little nuggets of joy are going to melt down beautifully to give us that signature chewy texture. Here's how it works. Grab a large pot, ideally non-stick, and add a little butter which we melt down over medium heat. Once the butter is ready, toss in all your marshmallows. And now it's time to stir. And when I say stir, I mean stir. You gotta keep that spoon moving so the marshmallows melt evenly without burning. It takes a little patience, but before you know it, you'll have this gorgeous, gooey, marshmallowy goodness. This is when it's time to add our puffed quinoa. Pour it in all at once and start stirring like your life depends on it. Trust me, the clock is ticking because again, as the mixture cools, it gets stickier and harder to work with. Anyway, here comes the fun and a slightly chaotic part, transferring this impossibly sticky mass onto our nut brittle base. Scoop it out of the pot and plop it right on top of the brittle. From here, you'll need to spread it out evenly, and let me tell you, this is no easy feat. I tried a few techniques to tame the stickiness. A wet offset spatula worked reasonably well, but in the end, I found that using wet hands gave me the most control. The key is to stay calm and keep your hands or tools damp so the marshmallow doesn't cling. Eventually, you'll get that layer somewhat even, and that's when it's time for my favorite trick. Grab a small roller, like a pastry roller, and a sheet of baking paper. Lay the paper over the top of your quinoa marshmallow layer and then gently roll out. This helps smooth out the surface and presses the mixture into an even, compact layer. Now, while this fully sets for around an hour, let's work on my favorite part, which is branding and packaging. Because let's face it, a great snack deserves a great name, right? And I'll admit, coming up with one was a bit of a journey. Let me walk you through some of the contenders I brainstormed. First up, there was Crunch and Fluff. Cute, playful, but maybe a little too soft. Then there was Nutty by Nature, a solid nod to the chaos of the kitchen. Puff My Nuts. I'm just gonna leave this one out there. Chewy with a chance of nuts. I think that's a cute little pun, but maybe too long for a label. And then of course my personal wild card, Crispocalypse Nuts. In the end though, I landed on something cheeky yet a bit more refined, and that was Sticky Situation. It just felt perfect, both as a nod to the hilariously sticky cooking process and as a playful way to describe the bar itself. So with the name locked in, it was time to design the labels. I decided to go with a two-sticker approach, one for the front and one for the back. On the front, I featured the name Sticky Situation in eye-catching text with a tagline, while the back sticker had a little more detail like the main ingredients and, of course, a nod to their American heritage. To bring it all to life, I filled up an A4 sheet with my sticker designs and printed them onto self-adhesive paper. From there, it was all about precision. I used a trusty trimming tool to slice the sheet into individual stickers, and if you don't have a fancy cutter, don't worry, you can totally rock this step with a steady hand and an X-Acto knife, or even just sharp pair of scissors. By this point, the nut bars had fully set and cooled down. To get them out of the dish, I had to carefully loosen the edges of the sticky stuff from the walls. Even with all the butter we used to grease it, this step still required a bit of effort, but once I'd freed the edges, I was able to turn the whole thing over in one satisfying move. And then the moment of truth. That's exactly the texture we're going for. Now it was time to cut into the bars. So for this, a serrated knife is absolutely essential. First, I trimmed off the uneven edges to give myself a nice uniform block to work with. Then, using a ruler to ensure precision, I did the math and figured I could cut the block into 8 clean bars, each measuring 8 by 2.5 centimeters. A little bit, or let's say a lot, of careful slicing later, and boom, perfectly sized bars. Look at those. Now, once cut, I used a pastry brush to dust off all the little bits of nut and caramel debris that tend to stick to the surface. Now, come on, I think that cross section is pure snack perfection. But as amazing as they looked, we weren't done yet. We needed to wrap them up in a way that's both functional and beautiful. Now, because these bars are sweet and sticky, the wrapping material has to kind of be non-stick, so enter baking paper. It's simple, clean, and has a charming rustic vibe. The only tricky part, cutting it to size. Since the sheets are so large, I taped one down to my desk, slid a cutting mat underneath, and used a ruler and an X-Acto knife to cut it into even rectangles, just the right size to wrap around each bar. But I wanted to take it up a notch and make the wrapping feel a little more festive, so I added a decorative touch with strips of metallic gold gift wrap. And let me tell you, cutting slices from a massive sheet of gift wrap is no easy task. It was a bit of a challenge, but the payoff was worth it. Those gold accents will add just the right amount of flair. But now for the assembly. Each bar was wrapped in baking paper first. I used a glue stick to seal the ends, ensuring they wouldn't pop open. Then, to keep things neat, I rolled the bar tightly into a tube and then folded the ends inward, securing them with a tiny dab of glue. Don't worry, no glue ever touches the food itself, of course. With the baking paper in place, I wrapped a strip of the metallic gold paper around each bar, sealing it lightly with another dab of glue. And then came the most satisfying part of all, applying the branded label stickers. This was the moment when everything came together, transforming these bars into a professional, polished product. There's just something so magical about seeing these neatly serialized treats. It's like having your own mini mass production line at home. It's fun, satisfying, and honestly, a little addictive. But now, without further ado, let's unwrap and taste one of these babies. I don't even know how to best do this. I think I can just like open up one end and then maybe just push the bar out. Oh, well, no, almost. The festive layer came off. We'll put that here. And now this is the perfect bar. Oh my God, this is a good one too. That is just a beautiful cross section. I'm actually super happy I added pistachios. Not only are they really tasty, they make this cross section pop. It looks so pretty. But now let's finally give this a taste. Okay, one more bite. Oh yeah, we are in business. To me, the most prominent thing as soon as I bit into this is it is not too sweet. Perfect, for my taste buds at least. The nut layer tastes great as well. What I maybe like the most about it is that there isn't one nut that kind of shines over all the others. It really is a beautiful melange, a mix of nuts that just come together into one. Now for the chewy marshmallow layer, I do love the taste, and the quinoa's earthier flavor makes this feel a little more adult. But there's something about the texture, maybe it's the density of the quinoa or the marshmallow, but to be honest, it is a little firm. Maybe just a tiny bit chewy for my taste. Nonetheless, I'll give this a very solid 8 out of 10 for great taste, with a little room for textural improvement. That said, it's definitely good enough to share with you guys. I'm gonna give 5 of these original Sticky Situation bars away over on Instagram. This is where I can reach out to you guys. You'll find the link below, alongside a link to Delicious. Let me thank Delicious once again for sponsoring this video. There are many more high-quality American products other than nuts to discover. Be sure to check their website and see what types of food products the US like to send out into the world and what makes them so special, nutritious, and healthy.